I'm joined by Ed Buckley, CEO of Peerfit. Ed, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Ed, can you tell me about your interest in health? Has health been always something that was very important to you?
From the time I was young, I've always loved being active and doing, physical activities with my friends and family. Both my parents are very physically active and taught, us as kids the value of it early on. I remember when I was finally old enough to go to the gym by myself, every week I'd drag friends along with me, even if they didn't want to go, just so we could go to the gym and do something, whether it was the rock climbing wall or, going to different classes. So I've just always been drawn to this aspect of being active, and being active has always been a passion of mine. I love going to group fitness classes, even if it's a class that I'm not particularly interested in the style. Just being there, the energy, and that led me to be a physical or a group fitness instructor, in college.
It's terrific. I mean, I think, one of the best advice that one of my college professors told me is exercise has to be a big part of your life. And whether it's around just de-stressing or just staying fit, it's so important to stay healthy. So glad that it's just part of who you are. Let's talk a little bit about your company, Peerfit. Most companies recognize that financial and productivity-wise, there's incredible benefits to having a healthy workforce. Many of them also provide yoga, meditation, and corporate gyms, and sometimes even subsidized gym membership. So how does Peerfit fit into this, and why do you feel like Peerfit is solving a problem that's missing in the marketplace?
That's a fantastic question. I suppose that's the crux of our entire value prop, right? Which is the wellness industry for a long time recognized fitness is important, but they hadn't found a way to make it really consumable by the masses. When employers were paying for gym memberships, one of two things seemed to be happening. Number one, the people who already had gym memberships continue to go, i.e. making the healthy people healthier. That doesn't really solve a lot of medical cost problems for employers. And then the second thing was people would go and get a gym membership and not use it. And, we really refer to that as gym insurance. So what we wanted to do was ask ourselves, how do you redefine wellness? How do you make it something that people are excited and energized about? And really just took us forgetting about what solutions were out there and saying, what is it that people are already doing? And how do we make that an amazing enterprise health solution for employers and health plans? You have to find a way to make the individual members win, the local fitness partners win, and the people paying the bills, the employers and the health plans win. And typically speaking, most solutions have only one of those winning and all the others as losers. We really thought of ourselves as really like $1 billion bridge between healthcare and the fitness industry. And if we could be the ones to do that, we knew there was an amazing opportunity.
So that is a huge opportunity. And I agree that there is a kind of a disconnect between the health and gym marketplace versus the healthcare and the healthy lifestyle of the employees. How do you bridge it? And can you get into more of the depth around how does Peerfit work and how are you different from your competitors?
Yes, great question. So for us, we look at this and said what was going on was nothing but big box gym subsidy programs. And what we wanted to do was to be able to connect people to flow between different fitness experiences, whether it was boutique studios, whether it was gyms, whether it was streaming solutions. The employer could pay for you to frictionlessly hop between all of those experiences, not have to have a membership, or you could have a membership. Then the last and arguably the most important thing is to connect you with your peers. We knew that if we could go into an employer and get everyone having this universal access, and then there'd be far less excuses if, Susie and Steve are talking about going to work out and Susie invites Steve. Well, she knows that he's got universal access just like she does. So it really eliminates a lot of those barriers. And so, that's how we went out into the market was, let's get boutique studios, then let's go get big box gyms, let's do drop-ins and memberships, and then we added streaming, and then let's make this peer-to-peer kind of positive peer pressure the glue behind all of it. And I would say that's really the difference between us and the legacy things that we came in to disrupt. And as other people have come in to try to copycat our model, I'd say where our value prop has been, in our opinion, useful is that we want to champion the local fitness providers. We want to reimburse them well. So we don't have restrictions. We don't have limitations. We don't have peak pricing or limited number of spots that we see out there from a lot of other groups. And so to do drop-ins, to do memberships, to allow the plans to only pay as usage happens, and then to not have those restrictions as the user, that's how we see our success is that's our winning formula.
Yeah, because I think there are many health-related apps and platforms that are focusing on behavioral change and modification, which is really tough. I mean, I think most of us, when we work a full day from 8 to 7, 8 to 6, the last thing we want to do is hit the gym. So the fact that there is that accountability where someone's inviting you to work out together, you feel like you have to be part of that cell group and you're holding each other accountable. And otherwise, it'd be so hard to change that behavior and get them to go to the gym.
It's interesting because this is where my nerd PhD hat will come on. There was a study that was done on what keeps people coming back to fitness. And generally speaking, companies have attacked this by using one strategy. And what they find out is one strategy works for days 1 to 30. And a completely different and opposite strategy works from day 31 on. And that's what you have to think about is the first month, which is the hardest to get people in, right? Try a new class. It's scary. Am I going to look like an idiot? Am I going to waste my time? That is all about you and everything else around you, right? Your external environment. Who's there? Your social, element, your peers are the ones that hook you into a class and get you to form a habit. Once that habit's formed, i.e. 31 days forward, you'll keep going back because of the habit and how much you want to be there. And so that's what we tried to do is eliminate each one of those barriers. Get rid of the friction of reimbursement, get rid of the friction of trying new things, and we give recommendations, and then make it really easy for you to plug in with your friends, family, or coworkers to go.
Yeah, I think that the model is very interesting. So for example, even if, let's say you have, kids, I have, one in high school, one in middle school, and let's say they started a new school, the fact that they have some anchor friends allows for them to more likely to enjoy their experience, want to be consistent in their attendance. Same thing goes for gym. Certainly the run club, if somebody invites you to the run club, you're more likely to run because you feel like you're part of a social group. So that cohesion, that support is so important. I'm so glad that you made the distinction between the first 30, which is kind of the New Year's resolution, versus the rest of the year, and whether you're going to keep with what you're trying to do.
Exactly. I mean, we as humans need peer pressure to some extent to try things. I mean, I don't think everyone who engages in fitness loves fitness, right? We all do it for different reasons, but one thing that is proven over and over again is having accountability and peer pressure helps keep you in that realm of being active.
And I think the other aspect that you didn't quite mention is the fact that not only are you as an individual staying healthy, but you feel a closer bond with each other. And when you have that closer bond in a collegial work environment, the productivity overall rises as well.
When we started the company, we thought of ourselves as a wellness solution, right? We're taking employer dollars and we're putting people into fitness. But because of that peer-to-peer element, what we ended up finding out, because the employers told us this, was we're really an employee engagement strategy, right? We've had employers start with us thinking, oh, this is just one of the things I'm going to do this year because it's wellness, and scrapped everything else and doubled down because we're the best way to allow their peers to interact. And if they're going to workouts together, then they're talking more often, then they're communicating more often at work. And just that team cohesion seems to really grow and solidify the more people are going to classes together. I mean, you can only go to so many happy hours together before you get burnt out on that. And really, Peerfit's a bit of a fitness happy hour that people can go to, once or twice a week together.
Well, I love it. I do martial arts. I'm working on my second degree black belt, and before that, I used to lift weights very regularly. And having that, partner or partners with you just makes that whole experience so much more gratifying. So I'm so glad that you're really talking about the engagement aspect. That's fascinating. I want to change the topic a little bit and talk about where you're based. Unlike other startups, you're not based in Silicon Valley, New York, or Boston or Seattle. You're based in Tampa, Florida. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm looking out at Tampa Bay right now through my window.
So how was it like starting a startup in that region versus the kind of typical startup hotspots? And what were some of the challenges with running and operating a startup in that region?
Well, there's a little bit of just, I think, ego that you have to start with, which is a lot of people feel that the good startups are in Silicon Valley and New York, and you just have to be confident in yourself, be confident in your mission, and be confident in your team. That every day that you go out and hear, but why are you in Silicon Valley, doesn't give you a complex, or it doesn't make you insecure, about the decision you've made. We enjoy being on the Tampa Bay region. Jeff Vinnick has come in here and really just completely revitalized the area, and thus attracted a lot of great other investors, mentors, and organizations, whether it's Embark Collective, Florida Funders, individual angels like Lee Arnold, who's on our board. Probably 5 years ago, this place wasn't ready to support multiple growth companies, the ones, people who have grown at the rate we have at Peerfit. But now it has been. And so the reason we chose Tampa is still the reason we choose Tampa, right? We could be opening offices now that we're bigger and more well-known in other places. But if anything, it's made us more supportive of making Tampa our headquarters. And look, it's a great state, great tax base here. And there's starting to be more and more talent and access to great universities, whether it's University of Florida that was just ranked in the top 10, USF that's right down the street, and so on.
Yeah, it reminds me of a case study where this artificial intelligence professor at Stanford opened up his course, not just to Stanford enrolled students, but to the world. And what was very interesting is that some of the students that had the highest grades were actually unaffiliated with any universities whatsoever. And they were coming from all over the world. And that's the point, is that there is incredible talent dispersed throughout the world. It's just a matter of harnessing it. Which brings up my next question, which is the fact that you guys are a completely remote organization. What does that exactly mean? And do you have a physical office?
Well, it means that we exist everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. So it dawned on us a few years ago that if you want the absolute best talent, it's become much easier to work with people who are not in your physical space, right? And if you want the best talent, and you don't have to worry about recruiting or will they move and can their families change schools and what time of the year it is, that they can just work from wherever they are. But then it really, it struck a nerve when I was talking to someone in the health insurance industry, and they said, man, I hate the days I have to come to the office. And I love when I get to work remote, because I get to work this way and use this protocol and do this. I'm very jealous when I'm in the office and these people are out on remote. And what you started to hear is that there's two different ways people worked when they were in the office and different protocols. So we said, what if we could establish the exact same protocol, no matter where you were, whether you were physically right next to me or whether you were on the other side of the country? That way it didn't matter if people happened to be traveling, or if they were working from their home, or if they're working, in a co-working space together. And that's where we said everyone should be on remote status. And, it's worked well for us. We have a lot of real estate investors in our early seed cap table, and all of them said, oh, capture 10 people. This won't work 20. This won't be. And here we are, top 10 company cultures work for. We have an outstanding culture. Our people are absolutely amazing, and they've just done a great job of building a kind of drama-free family that helps each other out. But once again, it doesn't matter whether I'm at home here today or whether I'm on the road. I have the exact same reporting protocol. And, we use Google Enterprise, we use Slack, we use video conferencing for everything. And so, we communicate a lot. I know pretty much everything that goes on just because of how detailed we are in our reporting. We get the entire company together twice a year at an all hands. We do a lot of regional in-person stuff along the way. And everybody gets Peerfit as a benefit. So if I live in Tampa, there are 20 people that I get to go work out with. If I live in Denver, there are 20 people to go work out with. And people really take advantage of that benefit. So, remote culture isn't something, in my opinion, you can dip your toe into. I personally think it's got to be all or nothing.
Well, I think the notion of distributed workforce and the fact that people can work from anywhere is very much where the future trend is going. And certainly the millennials and the Gen Zers are expecting that level of flexibility. And frankly, when it comes to higher compensation versus flexibility and balance of work and life, it is something that's very important to them, which means that happier employees also means much more higher productivity as well. So I think that's a terrific strategy. Let's talk a little bit about the growth of your organization. You guys have recently closed your Series C round in March, bringing the total funding to about $38 million. How has the obstacles from the early stage changed now that you guys are more in a growth mode?
Ooh, it is almost just a staff perspective. In the early days, we had a bunch of generalists, Jack and James of all trades, if you will, and people were changing roles every couple weeks, every couple months. And that inherently has its own problems. Recruiting, finding people, knowing what the right people are, bringing people in, teaching them a process, and then making a pivot, which completely changes what they do or how that department works. That's a lot of the early stuff people experience. And that's why certain people are really great at that early stage and then fail as they get later, and vice versa. There are people that we brought on now who we could have never brought on earlier. As you start to grow and scale and have a more solidified business model, product market fit, you really start to bring in some subject matter experts, some specialists, and you start to find who of your early generalists can transition into a role or two roles. How do they interact with new people? That was something that I think was hard for all of us, myself and the early staff, which is when you've got 20 people and you're pretty much just a family, everybody's doing everything, and you get to 50 people, you've got 30 new people that weren't part of the early days and don't know, a lot of that early culture. So how do you make sure the culture survives, but you're not excluding new people? You're not treating them differently. And some of these early people start to have bosses and layers put on top of them between themselves and me, So I would say that's what happens, during that period. And as you go from 50 to 100 and so on, what we've seen is really pace becomes the issue. Is we have so many positive opportunities now that people know who we are, now that we're starting to get, the machine rolling with momentum. You got to know to say no to certain opportunities. And you've just got to be aware of the pace so that quality, quantity, equation is there. And you're not just churning out tons of code, but the stability has been compromised, or we're saying yes to every sales opportunity, but we're going to die by 1,000 cuts because they each want a small customization. So, that's what I would say is just a very disciplined, narrow focus on executing your machine and your model to take it from good scale to amazing scale.
Terrific. I think that is really well put. And the challenges of that transitional stage is so important. And the fact that you have that narrow focus, that laser vision focus, is so important to staying the course and making sure that you're executing flawlessly. We only have just a few minutes. There's a couple of questions. If you could just try and wrap it up in a couple of minutes, is anything that you can share publicly around what's being unveiled in terms of a product roadmap that you can share? And then the question we always ask our guests is, what was your greatest innovation failure and what were the lessons learned?
Great. So from a non-product perspective, it's certainly no secret that we are going to expand into the Medicare Advantage, serving employers in the under 65 space. We're incredibly excited. Our product's called Peerfit Move. It's basically disrupting that space, the big box gym, senior Medicare Advantage plan that has just been, I think, a bit stale and silver. Everything seems to be silver up there. I don't know why it is. So we call it Peerfit Move. It's about getting people moving. It's about a movement. So we're excited there. And that led us to build a lot of new features inside of our core platform and that side of the house. We're really trying to understand the peer-to-peer element. How does the average person who will be fit but doesn't love fitness. What is the best hook for them, or hooks for the different types of people? So we're looking at everything, and sorry, product team, I'm leaking this a little bit. We're looking and doing tests right now on, is there a social media photo element inside of reservations that can actually change your mind or make it more attractive? Are there certain elements of the data your Apple Watch is tracking mixed with our class reservation data that we can pull together to make classes a little bit more attractive? I mean, ultimately, everything we're doing behind the scenes R&D on is all about how do we lower the barriers and how do we make it more sticky and attractive? I always tell everyone, imagine walking into a theme park like Disney World, and if it's really, really complicated to get to the first ride, you're immediately overwhelmed. Imagine if when you walk in the door, you see the first ride you want to go on and someone holds your hand to get you there. That's really what we're trying to do now on under 65 and over 65. Now, when it comes to the greatest innovation failure and what did we learn, I would say I've learned personally to trust the experts you bring in the room. Some of the biggest failures have been because I personally think we want a feature, or I personally am pushing something because that's the way I use it. And we've lost opportunities, we've lost deals because early in the process, I couldn't get out of my own way, and I really wanted, certain features built, and they just, there were subtle features that I didn't think would be key, and man, they really are. And I would say what I learned, and hopefully I don't do that nearly as much anymore, is you shouldn't be the smartest one in the room. You should figure out what your users are wanting, and you should figure out a mechanism to allow other people to test the ideas, and that your thumbprint isn't, guiding things too heavily. So you do need a little bit of gut instinct of what they want early, in your startup. But as soon as you start to have customers, they have to be the ones driving the direction, and you have to understand what you're seeing to then make the decision. So you got to learn to trust an amazing team. You've got to learn to trust your customers and that data, and then figure out how to use that data. And you said earlier, hey, we've been great because we've been narrowly focused. We've been narrowly focused because of our team, not because of me, right? I certainly love to try to push and try new things. It's our team. It's that exec team with Adam and Drew and Todd and, everybody else who's kept us focused. That's why we are where we are.
Terrific advice and insights. So today I've been joined by Ed Buckley, the third CEO of Peerfit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.